She wasn't a guest. She wasn't a socialite. She was just doing her job. On the shining marble floor of a luxury gala, surrounded by billionaires and flashing cameras, a young black woman bent down to clean a spill. In that moment, one powerful man saw her not as a worker, not even as a human being, but as something to laugh at, something to buy. What happened next would humiliate her in front of the city's elite, but also spark a chain of events no one could stop. How does a single night of cruelty turn into a story the whole world can't ignore? Naomi Carter was only 26, but she carried the weight of a lifetime on her shoulders. Growing up in the Bronx, nothing had ever come easy. By day, she was the first in her family to graduate from Columbia with a degree in business administration. By night, she worked shifts most people would never notice, cleaning offices, hotels, and sometimes the glittering ballrooms of New York's wealthiest. That night at the Ritz-Carlton, she was just another worker in a starched uniform, moving quietly through a world that pretended she didn't exist. Guests in diamond gowns and tailored suits brushed past her without a glance, their laughter echoing through crystal chandeliers. Naomi had learned to fade into the background, to make herself invisible in spaces where she was never meant to belong. But invisibility has its limits, because when one powerful man noticed her, not for her education, her talent, or even her humanity, the moment would not only humiliate her, it would shatter the illusion of untouchable privilege inside that room. And Naomi's life would never be the same again. The ballroom glittered with wealth, crystal chandeliers spilling light across silk gowns, tuxedos, and champagne glasses that never seemed to empty. Naomi moved silently among it all, her cleaning cart blending into the shadows. For most guests, she was invisible. But then came the sound that would cut through the night, the clink of glass shattering against the marble floor. A spilled drink, bright red wine spreading like a stain across perfection. Naomi knelt quickly, cloth in hand, doing what she had done 100 times before. But this time eyes turned. Conversations paused. A woman in diamonds tilted her head, whispering something to her husband as though watching an exhibit. And then, from across the room he appeared. Ethan Whitmore, millionaire. A man who carried himself as if the entire city bent to his will. He saw her kneeling there on the floor, bent over in her uniform, and smirked. With deliberate steps he crossed the room. Every eye followed. Naomi kept her head down, focused on the mess, unaware of what was about to come. And then, in a voice loud enough for the nearest tables to hear, Ethan reached into his wallet, pulled out a crisp bill, and let it dangle in front of her. $100. The words fell heavy, coated with arrogance. Not an offer for help, not respect for her work, but a suggestion that she leave her rag, step out of her role, and serve him in the most degrading way imaginable. Laughter rippled across the room. Not kind laughter, not laughter shared with her, but the kind that slices, that burns, that makes you smaller than you've ever felt before. Naomi's hand froze on the marble. Her cheeks burned hot. And in that moment, she realized, this wasn't just humiliation. This was power being wielded against her, daring her to react, knowing she couldn't. Security hovered nearby. The event organizers watched with unease. Ethan's smirk widened, feeding off the silence of the crowd. Because silence, he knew, meant consent. Naomi stood there, holding herself together while the weight of privilege pressed down on her. To them, she wasn't a graduate. She wasn't an entrepreneur. She wasn't a human being with dignity. She was just a cleaner, someone they believed could be bought and discarded without consequence. But humiliation has a way of planting seeds. And while the guests moved on, pretending nothing had happened, Naomi carried the wound with her. Sharp, unshakable, impossible to ignore. Ethan thought the night was over. But for Naomi, it had only just begun. Because the same man who mocked her in public was about to learn that the girl he laughed at on the ballroom floor wasn't someone to underestimate. Not now. Not ever. Naomi could have stayed silent. She could have carried the sting of humiliation and moved on like so many others forced to swallow indignities in silence. But she refused. In the days that followed, while Ethan Whitmore laughed about his joke at the Ritz, Naomi began gathering proof. Documents, emails, financial records that revealed more than just arrogance, they revealed corruption. And then the moment came. A single video clip from that gala surfaced online. Grainy but undeniable. Ethan's hand outstretched, $100 bill hanging from his fingers. His voice mocking, his smirk unmistakable. And Naomi, on her knees, surrounded by the laughter of the powerful. The internet did not stay silent. Within hours, the clip went viral. Within a day, news anchors replayed it on primetime television. Hashtags exploded, hashtag Whitmore exposed, hashtag she is not for sale. What Ethan thought would disappear in a cloud of privilege now lived in millions of pockets, screens glowing with outrage. But the video was only the spark. Naomi and her legal partner unleashed the fire. Hidden contracts, evidence of discrimination, records of stolen opportunities, all of it dragged into the light. Suddenly, Ethan wasn't the untouchable billionaire. He was the face of exploitation, arrogance, and fraud. For Ethan, the walls closed in fast. Clients pulled out. Investors fled. Federal investigators circled. And for Naomi, the woman once dismissed as invisible, her voice cut through the noise of a nation. The humiliation that began on a ballroom floor had transformed into the downfall of a man who thought he could never be touched. And as Naomi stood before cameras, the world watching, one truth became undeniable. Ethan Whitmore's empire wasn't just collapsing. It was being buried by the very woman he tried to buy. Ethan Whitmore's fortune crumbled faster than anyone imagined. Contracts dissolved, lawsuits mounted, and the man once seated at the top of New York's elite was left a shadow of himself. But for Naomi, this story was never just about revenge. It was about dignity. It was about proving that no one, not even a billionaire, had the right to strip someone of their humanity. Her firm, once a small and hidden operation, grew into one of the most respected auditing consultancies in the city. Corporations that once ignored her now sought her guidance, desperate to avoid becoming the next Whitmore scandal. Naomi stood on stages where she once scrubbed floors, teaching future leaders that integrity mattered more than privilege, and that arrogance carried a cost no empire could afford. But beyond the accolades, beyond the headlines, her story left a deeper mark. It forced people to confront uncomfortable truths about race, class, and power. How many times had others been humiliated in silence, their stories never recorded, their pain never believed? How many Naomi Carters had been erased before the world ever had a chance to listen? Her victory was not just her own, it was a reminder that the smallest voice can echo the loudest, that invisibility is never permanent, and that injustice, no matter how deeply rooted, can be torn out by its core when someone dares to stand up. Naomi's life had been rewritten, but the question remained. How many more stories like hers will it take before we stop mistaking privilege for power and start recognizing the humanity in every person, no matter their uniform? What do you think? Was Naomi's victory just about one man's downfall or about changing the system itself? If her story moved you, don't forget to hit the like button and share this video so more people hear it. And subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories that reveal the truth behind privilege, injustice, and resilience.